There are moments that split a life like lightning splits a night, blinding, immediate, impossible to deny. Mine began in a kitchen with heat from a stove and heat I couldn't name. He looked at me, and something I'd hidden began burning, bright and terrifying. I didn't know who I'd be. It was my sister's idea to host Sunday dinner, but it was the heat of her tiny apartment kitchen that did me in. The stove exhaled in steady blue breaths, and the windows fogged with steam and late summer humidity. Basil, crushed under a knife, let go of its breath in a peppery sigh. Tomatoes surrendered themselves to the pot with a wet, cheerful whisper. It should have been ordinary. It should have been easy. "Jack, you're early," my sister called from the living room. She was 2 years younger than me and perpetually late to every plan she made, fashionably, defiantly. "Frank's in the kitchen. He'll put you to work." The name landed inside my chest like a pebble dropped into deep water. I hadn't met him yet. Frank. 29, the text said. Construction manager, good with people and plants, likes to cook. I was 27 and good at showing, up on time and holding myself together. I told myself he would be exactly like every other boyfriend she'd introduced in the last few years. Charming enough, kind on the surface, the kind of guy whose existence would barely graze my life. I stepped into the kitchen and stopped. He had his back to me, sleeves rolled to his elbows, forearms freckled with flour and sunlight, hair the color of wet coffee. He moved with careful economy, as if someone had taught him to pay attention to the way a knife met an onion, the rhythm of it, the significance of small things done well. He was humming, barely audible over the simmering. There was nothing dramatic about him. That was the problem. He turned at the sound of my shoes on the tile. His face, clean lines, a mouth that seemed perpetually on the verge of a smile, lit with something steady. Not a spark. A lamp coming on. "You must be Jack," he said. "I'm Frank." He wiped his hands on a towel and offered one. It was warm, calloused, maybe from work, maybe from life. "Your sister says you make a mean salad." "She lies," I said. "But I can open a bottle." He laughed, and it did something inconvenient to my heartbeat. "I'll take what I can get." We were alone in the small space for a stretch of seconds that felt dangerously elastic. I told myself I was overreacting to a stranger's face, a stranger's competence at coaxing a sauce into flavor. I told myself that noticing wasn't the same as wanting, and wanting wasn't the same as doing. "I'm 29, he said suddenly, as if he'd heard a question I hadn't spoken. "Your sister said you like knowing people's stats. She said you're the data guy." "Not really," I said. "I just like knowing where to put people in my head." "Ah," he nodded. "Make room for me under men who set the smoke. Alarm off twice already." He tilted the pan and tasted the tomato with a spoon, his expression studying, amused. "Can you hand me the salt, the coarse one?" I passed it over, careful, like it might be fragile. "I'm 27, I said, because it seemed suddenly fair to give him something back. "I do communications, mostly emails about things no one reads." "Maybe they would read them if you wrote better," he teased, and when I raised an eyebrow, he added, "I'm kidding, kind of. You have the posture of someone who takes care with words." "Is that a posture?" "It is when you're watching." "Them leave your mouth," he said, "like you want to cut them into even pieces." He looked at me when he said it, really looked, and I had to put my hands on the countertop to feel steady. The kitchen felt too warm. Or I did. "Frank," my sister called, "where's the corkscrew?" "In the top drawer," he called back, then glanced at me, conspiratorial. "I keep moving it. It makes her crazy to look." "That's cruel." "It's efficient," he said. "She finds 3 other things she lost while she's searching." He smiled, and I told myself that was what my chest was reacting to, a good smile in a hot kitchen at the end of a long week. I did not think about the slight tremor in my hand when I reached for the cutting board. I did not think about the word girlfriend, about the words my sister's. "I can slice the cucumber," I said. "Careful," he said. "It bites." "I've been bitten by worse," I said lightly, but the knife nicked me anyway, a rude, bright sting. The red came fast, sharp in the fluorescent light. "Hey, Frank said, quiet and immediate, as if he'd been waiting to be useful. Come here. He took my hand gently, turned it palm up. Where's your first aid kit? He asked the room, which didn't answer. Never mind. He moved to the sink, ran the water until it blued cold, and brought my hand under it, his thumb steady above my wrist. You okay? He asked. His eyes were level with mine, his mouth softened at the edges by concern. Yes, I said, though the word felt like it belonged to someone else. The water stung and then didn't, and then his touch was the only thing I could feel. Hold there. He pressed a clean dish towel to the cut, his fingers firm. You have a pulse like a drum, he said, light as if to distract me. Fast, but not bad fast. You can read pulses? I can read people, he said. Mostly, sometimes. My sister breezed through, hair in a top knot, arms laden with candles and good intentions. Is everyone alive? Barely, I said. Jack cut himself trying to impress me, Frank said dryly. It worked, she rolled her eyes. Don't bleed on my tableware. I'll try not to, I said, and she was gone again, trailing the tail of a conversation with a friend on speakerphone, laughter like confetti. The door clicked shut behind her, and suddenly we were back to the steady hiss of the burner and the breath between us. Frank wrapped a bandage around my finger with surprising neatness, tied a small knot like a gift. He didn't let go right away. His hand was warm, heavier than it needed to be. Thank you, I said. He nodded. You're welcome. He stepped back finally, gave me space like a present. You ever wonder, he said, turning back to the stove, why kitchens are where the truest things happen? People confess secrets over sinks. People cry over cutting boards. People kiss where there are knives. I leaned against the counter, pretending I was not destabilized. Do they? I said. My voice was too careful. They do, he said. Not always. Sometimes they only almost do. He stirred the sauce, then held the spoon toward me. Taste. I leaned in, close enough to smell his cologne, something quiet, cedar and rain. The spoon grazed my bottom lip. The sauce was bright and sweet and anchored by basil. It's good, I managed. Needs more salt, he said, and salted it like an artist. I watched his hands. I watched the way silence sat easily on him. Most men, in my experience, filled silences with noise, facts, jokes, bravado. Frank made room inside them, like he was building a house where both of us could stand. Frank, I said, before I decided to, and the name shifted something in the air. You and my sister. Are you... I didn't know how to finish it without sounding like a jealous child. He didn't look up. We're dating, he said. That's the word we use. He finally met my eyes. I like her, he said, and the sincerity in it was a kind knife. She is bright and knocked together and she makes me laugh. I don't play games. Okay, I said. The room felt clearer and harder at once. He set the spoon down carefully, like it mattered where it rested. I don't play games, he repeated, softer. But I do pay attention. He held my gaze for a second longer than politeness required. Do you? I swallowed. Too much, I said. The smoke alarm chose that moment to shriek, hysterical about nothing. Frank grinned, grabbed a dish towel, and fanned it, laughing. See? He shouted over the noise. Twice already. I laughed too, because not laughing would have been a confession, and the alarm finally fell silent, shamed into quiet. Let me finish the salad, I said, because doing something with my hands felt like an alibi. He nodded, and our shoulders brushed when he stepped past me, a contact so light it might have been imagined. When my sister returned, the kitchen had settled into something like peace. Frank plated the pasta with competence. I set the table, aligned the forks the way my mother had taught me, and pretended the pressure behind my ribs was just hunger. Dinner was good. Conversation was easy. Frank fit, or seemed to, like a picture, in the right frame. I watched him avoid the stories that would make him look better than he was. I watched him listen. I watched him say my name once, low, to pass the bread basket, and I felt the syllable land and bruise. After we stood in the kitchen with the lights low, the party relocated to the living room where my sister and her friends argued about a show. Frank rinsed plates. I dried. The quiet returned like a tide. He handed me a wet glass, and our fingers met along its rim. Neither of us moved first. My sister's boyfriend did this to me, I thought then, bewildered. The words assembling themselves like a verdict. In the kitchen, he had taken my heartbeat and taught it a different rhythm. In the kitchen, he had turned attention into touch and touch into a question. He had done this. He had made me want. He let the glass go, and it belonged to me. Good night, Jack, he said. Simple. Kind. He was leaving the kitchen, the room, the moment. He took a step and paused. Careful with knives, he added, and his smile reached me like a secret. I watched him walk away. Everything inside me pitched forward, as if a floorboard had shifted beneath my feet. In the other room, my sister laughed, the sound bright, as coins. I stood very still and counted my breaths like a penitent, knowing already that tomorrow and the next day and the ones after, the kitchen would still be warm with what we had almost done. Every time I open a drawer, something inside me slides and rattles, sharp things waiting. Since that night, I taste tomatoes and think of him. The kitchen is a crime scene without a crime, a question without an answer. I am the match, the gas, the almost spark, hungry for what burns. On Wednesday, I found him in the produce aisle, elbows tilted over a pyramid of nectarines like he was protecting them. The fluorescent lights were unkind to most faces, but not his. He turned the fruit gently, checking for bruises like a person who had been bruised before and decided tenderness was a form of rebellion. Hey, he said, as if we had agreed to meet here, as if this was an argument we both knew the shape of. Hey, I echoed, feeling suddenly overdressed in my shirt and tie, like I'd walked into something spiritual wearing the wrong clothes. You look like an apology, he said, grinning. Rough day? The kind with a lot of words and zero oxygen, I said. You look like summer. That's the nectarines, he said. They cast a flattering light. We moved in the choreography you learn with shopping carts and strangers. He leaned toward me, lowered his voice. I'm making dinner for your sister tomorrow night. She had a promotion. She shrugged like it wasn't a big deal. It is. Will you come? The cart handle was suddenly an anchor. I imagined the kitchen. Again, the simple geography of it mapped across my skin like an old injury. Does she want me to? She said she didn't want to make you feel obligated, he said, then lifted a shoulder, a small surrender. I want you to. No one had taught me what to do with sentences like that. I nodded, measured. I'll be there. We finished, shopping together because it would have been strange not to. He picked basil and laughed at the price, as if he could argue down inflation with charm. I grabbed pasta, a brand our mother used to buy, with a blue box and a little window shaped, like a promise. At the checkout, he paid without fanfare, slid a chocolate bar onto the belt at the last second. For your sister? I asked. For me, he said. For us, if we deserve it. If? We'll see, he said, and his eyes warmed, and my ribs felt like someone had tuned them. I went home feeling like I was carrying more than groceries. I put the basil in a jar to pretend it still had roots. I worked late, pretending emails mattered more than how a stranger held a nectarine. I slept badly, and when morning came, I was already halfway to evening. I arrived early, again. It had rained, and the apartment's steps were slick, the hall smelling like damp newsprint and lemon cleaner. My sister wasn't home yet. Frank opened the door like he'd been watching for footsteps. He was in a black shirt, sleeves up, that easy competence threaded through him like a second spine. She's running late, he said, apologetic. Work thing. Come in. He had set the table with the good plates she only used on holidays, which felt both sweet and foreboding. The kitchen was familiar as a déjà vu. He'd arranged ingredients like evidence: tomatoes, garlic, a lemon, the basil we'd bought, already rinsed and vivid. "Do you ever get tired of making beautiful things?" I asked, because my mouth needed something to do. "Yes," he said, simply. But not of trying. The pasta water breathed on the stove. Everything was almost. He handed me a knife like an offering. "Cut the tomatoes." Slow, thoughtful. "I'm not bleeding today," I said. "Not if I can help it," he said, and there it was again, a sentence with a second life. I halved, then quartered. He moved beside me in a radius that made my skin talk. My body was chatty and unreliable. He watched the blade, not me, which was somehow worse. "You're holding it like you expect it to betray you," he murmured. "I'm holding it like it's sharper than my luck," I said. He stepped behind me, not touching, his breath a question. "Near my ear?" "May I?" he asked, and the politeness of it made me want to say no just to exercise control over something. I said yes. His hands closed over mine, steadying. His chest was a breath from my back. Careful. He guided the motion. Down, lift, slide back, the knife a metronome our bodies obeyed. "You control it," he said into the space between us. "Or you decide not to." "You make it sound like more than a knife," I said, and my voice sounded like it lived in someone braver. "It's always more than a knife," he said. "It's what you let it open." I swallowed. The world narrowed to steel, tomato, the clean gravity of his hands. When he stepped away, the room flooded back, the clock ticking, the rain's slow applause against the window, my heart naming itself out loud. "You ever cook with your dad?" he asked, casual, like tossing a pebble into a deep well. He ordered. "Takeout," I said. He liked the illusion of choice. Frank nodded. "Mine cooked everything. He said a kitchen could keep a family honest if you let it. He made too much noise with the pots on purpose so we couldn't hear him be scared. He said it like a fact no one could argue. I set down the knife so I wouldn't grip it like a rope. "Is he gone?" he said. "But not far. Some days I can still taste his marinara in a place I didn't know had taste buds." I wanted to step closer and didn't. Instead, I tore basil with my fingers, as he had taught me with a look, not with words. "My mother taught us forks and thanks," I said. "My sister learned joy. I learned balance." "Balance is a beautiful lie," he said gently. "It's just motion you make look like stillness." I laughed, because if I didn't, I might make a sound I couldn't explain. "Are you always like this?" "Annoying," he offered. "Exact," I said. He smiled. "No, only when it matters." We moved through the small tasks of a meal. He salted pasta water until it tasted like the ocean. I zested lemon over ricotta. Our sleeves brushed once, twice, 3 times, the way a song repeats a phrase until you realize it meant the chorus. I kept asking small questions to keep from asking the large one. "What are we doing?" The buzzer sounded. We both jumped. He wiped his hands on a towel, a reflex. "She's here," he said, and in those 2 words was relief and something that sounded like a door closing politely. He went to buzzer in, and in that pause, the room felt like a theater after last curtain, all the props suddenly absurd. My finger throbbed with a memory that had nothing to do with a cut. The lock turned, the door opened. My sister swept in on laughter and rain, mascara smudged charmingly, a bouquet of sunflowers held like a trophy. "I'm disgusting," she announced. "I need a shower and a new personality. Frank, you're a saint. Jack, you're early, which is my favorite version of you." She kissed my cheek, and then his, and every place her mouth touched felt like it wanted to be forgiven. "You smell like ambition," Frank said fondly. "Go. We'll finish." She vanished down the hall, leaving perfume and good chaos. The water started in the bathroom, a bright rush. We were alone again, appointed guardians of a dangerous peace. Frank stirred the sauce. I watched his profile like it might make a decision for me. He turned, held up the spoon. "Taste?" he said, but this time it felt like the word had passed, through a line it shouldn't have crossed. I leaned in. The spoon hovered. The steam fogged the space. He didn't touch my mouth with it this time. He didn't need to. The air itself tasted like tomatoes and lemons and trouble. "Jack," he said, "not careful now. My name a door he opened with his bare hands." "I know," I said, which meant nothing and everything. The bathroom water thundered, the timer on, the oven beeped. The apartment existed in 1,000 separate rooms, and in this one we were a cause without an alibi. He set the spoon down with intent. He reached slow and took my wrist, the one he'd held under cold water days ago. His thumb found my pulse and pressed as if he could write there. I felt my body answer like a drum taught its first rhythm. "We are good people," he said quietly, and the sentence was the heaviest object in the room. "And sometimes good people end up in a room like this." "We could leave it," I said. "We could leave it unlit." "We could," he said. He didn't let go. Water shut off. Pipes sighed. Footsteps. He released my wrist, but the place he had touched kept the shape of him. He stepped back exactly the right distance, like someone who had practiced being honorable. My sister reappeared in a robe and a smile, her song already on her lips. "Is it safe to be proud of me now?" she joked. Frank handed her a sun-yellow dish towel, steady. "Always," he said. I set down the knife. My hands were shaking, but only on the inside, which is to say, terribly. There's a point where heat stops building and starts demanding. The kitchen knows it, and so do I. Knives shine, water shivers, the truth fogs the glass. Tonight something will boil over, and I can't promise I'll save the pot. I am done almost living in rooms that steam for me. 3 days after Lemon. And restraint, Sunday returned like a test I'd already failed. My sister texted a sunshine emoji and same time, and I typed yes before my brain caught up with my hands. Frank sent nothing. I told myself that meant discipline, not absence. I bought basil again, like a superstition, and showed up early, again, like a confession. The door was unlocked. The apartment smelled like detergent and memory. The kitchen light was off. The room held itself dimly, a body bracing for news. Frank was there, elbows on the counter, sleeves pushed up, a pot of water waiting to be asked to boil. "You came," he said, and somehow it sounded like a relief and a complication. "You asked me," I said. "I didn't," he said softly. "Not this time." I blinked. Right. He looked tired in a way that made me want to press my hand to his forehead and ask for his dreams. "She went for a walk," he said. "She said she needed to practice saying what she was going to. Say." The word she fell like rain on a tin roof. "Say to who?" "To me," he said. "To you." He swallowed. "I told her last night that I am not where she is, that I have feelings that don't line up with where we started. I didn't say, 'Your name.' She's not stupid." My throat went dry as if he'd sifted it with flour. "Frank." "I haven't touched you," he said, almost pleading with the air. "I haven't lied to her. But I've thought about you like thinking. Itself is a contact sport, and that is a kind of touch I can't pretend is harmless." I put the basil down like evidence I didn't know how to present. "Do you love her?" I asked, because questions can be braver than people. "I respect her. I admire her. I could have built a life with her," he said, and his honesty was a steadying hand and a blade. "I think what I feel for you might be the thing I'm supposed to call love if I have the courage." The faucet dripped once, twice, like a metronome counting down. "If," I repeated small. He nodded. "Because it matters how we get there. Because this room remembers everything we almost did." The lock turned. The door opened. My sister came in alone, hair up, cheeks pink from air indecision. She saw us and stopped. The kitchen, the stove, the knives, the basil, the two of us standing like wrong answers, held its breath. "Okay," she said, and her voice was stronger than I felt. We're going to be the kind of people we said we are. She put her keys down with intent. Frank straightened like someone preparing for weather. I wanted to hold both their hands and found mine useless at my sides. I've been rehearsing this in my head and it sounded kinder there, she said, half smiling. But I only get one mouth. She looked at Frank first. I like you, she said. You are a good man who cooks like it's a language, who listens like it matters. You made me laugh out loud in rooms I had taught myself to keep quiet. Her eyes wet, then steadied. But I need someone who is looking in the same direction I am, and you aren't. I've known it for a minute. Somewhere between the second time you burned the garlic and the way you said my brother's name like it might be yours. Silence, a soft, unbearable thing. Frank nodded once, as if accepting a truth you can't write an appeal for. I'm sorry, he said, the words coming from someplace honest and heavy. You deserve someone who looks at you and thinks, yes, that's the door. She let out a breath that might have been a laugh. I deserve someone who doesn't move the corkscrew, she said, wry, and then her face crumpled and then didn't. And you deserve to stop pretending you don't already know what you want. Her gaze shifted to me, and I wanted to look away and didn't. Jack, she said quietly, and I'd never heard my name hold so much history. If this is something real, I don't want it because of me, and I don't want it in spite of me. I want it because it is itself. Do you hear me? I hear you, I said, but what I meant was, I love you. I'm sorry. I don't know how to do all of this right. She nodded, and her mouth did that brave thing where it lifts at one corner to keep a person from drowning. I'm going to go to Mom's, she said. For a few days. I don't want to break every plate I own while I try to forgive you both, and I definitely don't want to do it with nice pasta on the stove. I can go, I said uselessly. I can leave. You don't have to move. She shook her head. Jack, you left the day you started counting how often he looked your way. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I'm trying to be the person like when the lights are off. Frank took a step like he might touch her shoulder, then thought better and put his hand on his own heart instead. Thank you, he said, for saying the thing most people only swallow. She picked up her keys, then her courage. My kitchen deserves better gossip than this, she said. And there she was again, my sister. Generous, bright, defiant. Take care of each other. Don't make me regret being decent. She left, with more gentleness than I deserved. The door closed on a prayer and a promise, that the world keeps turning even when you can't. For a long time, we just stood there, the refrigerator humming like an old friend who doesn't know what to say. The pot began to almost boil, a tremor across the surface. Frank turned the burner off like a man ending a story he wasn't ready to tell. I should go, he said. Stay, I said, at the same time, and then neither of us moved. He leaned against the counter and looked at me not like a man does when he wants to win, but like a person does when he wants to arrive. We can wait, he said. We can do this right. Right feels like a long road, I said. I have good boots, he said, and there was a small, wry smile that felt like a handrail. But I need to end it cleanly, not just on her side. In me. No almosts, no half-lights. I nodded. I'll help by staying away, I said, hating it and knowing it was exactly the thing I would later use to recognize myself. Give me a week, he said. Give me the space to put the knives away. A week can be an ocean. I swam badly. I went to work and typed words that felt like sticks. I called my mother and asked about a recipe I already knew by heart. I thought of my sister at our childhood, kitchen table, braiding her hair and her hope, and I cried in the shower where the water could take the blame. I didn't see Frank. On the 8th day, there was a knock at my door. He stood there in a denim jacket that made him look like someone I would have tried not to sit next to on a bus for fear of saying the wrong thing. Hi, he said. Hi, I said, and then we laughed because there are only so many permissions until you have to make one yourself. Can I come in? He asked. Only if you're hungry, I said. I'm starving, he said, and we both knew what we meant. We moved to my kitchen, smaller, less practiced than my sister's, but honest. I took out ingredients like talismans, tomatoes, garlic, basil, lemons. He washed his hands like a ritual. We didn't crowd each other. We didn't rush. The pot began to breathe on the stove, a soft animal. I handed him a knife. His knife now, not a question, but an answer. He looked at me, and in that look were 100 small decisions I could trace like a map. The night he slept on his couch thinking of promises. The morning he texted my sister to make sure she ate. The moment he took her keys and left them on her hook because small kindness is still kindness. "May I?" he asked, and this time he meant my heart. "Yes," I said, and this time I meant the rest of my life. He stepped in close, slow enough for both of us to change our minds, and neither of us did. He put one hand on my cheek as if it were a page he didn't want to tear. He kissed me like an answer you whisper, like the first bite of something you've been smelling for hours. There was nothing borrowed in it. There was no apology hiding in its corners. It was sweet and bright and edged with salt where I hadn't known I'd been crying. We broke apart because breathing is a habit you shouldn't lose. He smiled a little helplessly. "The sauce," he said, and I laughed, a sound that felt like a house being built right where I stood. We ate at my small table, knees touching. We talked about dumb things, work, the neighbor's dog, the way Basil acts like it remembers sun. We didn't plan a future, but we didn't pretend we didn't want one. When the plates were empty, we stood in the kitchen and did the dishes like a vow. Later, when he reached for my hand, I let him. When he kissed me again, I kissed him back. We didn't need the knife to open anything. We had already chosen. Sometimes, on Sundays, I still go to my sister's. Sometimes I cook. She rolls her eyes at my salt. We make room around the ache until it's just part of the furniture. We have learned a new grammar for us. She has started dating someone who doesn't move the corkscrew. She smiles with all her teeth, and in kitchens, hers, mine, the one we'll make somewhere with better light. I remember the first lesson. My sister's boyfriend did this to me in the kitchen. He taught me to pay attention. He set my pulse to a rhythm that scared me and saved me. He opened something sharp and shining in me and called it truth.